41. First order of business, I'd like to pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business was to approve the minutes for November 17th.
So moved.
I was first, second? Second. Seconded? Any discussion on the minutes? Did you have any discussion for the minutes? I mean, you weren't here.
I wasn't here, but I read them. I agree with you. They were extreme, and I watched it on television too.
Oh, good, thank you.
Great.
No, the only underlining I have is the whole content of these meetings. They led me to believe that we have charted a course which may be good and may be not good. And little or nothing has been interjected in case there are difficulties. Now, we all look for a very prosperous future. However, tomorrow's history is not known today.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at these charts, how the expenses of the town itself is climbing every year, assuming even by 2.5%, but in a short period of time, it's 10, 15, 20%. And so the cost goes up. And I had questioned what has been made to think outside the box to see what could be done in case that perfectly straight line up will be dipped down. And I just, it bothers me that we are always just rubber stamp something that comes before us. Now, we are representing the taxpayer, not the town hall, and therefore we should question these questions and talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I have read now, over the years, I have read a lot of these reports, and when I bring them up, they seem to be always the same, practically. So I am not one that is satisfied with status quo today. I am one that wants to plan ahead. And I know that they talk about a bump. Well, that bump could be a cliff. And what is going to be happening? There's no sense to worry about it right now, but I think that we as the Finance Committee perhaps should give some thought to it. So can we bring some, there is no clarity in financial, numbers are numbers, and they go whichever, we let them go. However, the circumstances, we have no control over it. And when I read in the last paragraph, the statement you made, that the largest expense of the town is payroll and retirement benefits. Well, with every year they go up by 2.5%. And in the meantime, the private sector has absolutely no advance so far. We all hope that it will have it, but it has not happened the last 8 years or 10 years. And so we are pretty one-sided here to make sure that the town hall is well represented and does all the services, which they ought to, and it's very appreciated. However, at what cost? Will be, there was a number in here, for $20 1,000 assessment. I mean, that almost struck me cold. we were digging our own grave. You know, so it's enough said. I have enough.
No, I think the point is well taken, and I also feel as though that is the purpose of the document that we all have now, which is the 5-10-year plan, which appears to be running along the same assumptions that we're gonna be growing to 2.5%. And I think it's up to the two gentlemen that are sitting in the audience tonight to figure out a way to keep the town of Mashpee with the services that we currently receive, but yet not tax the taxpayer to the point where we won't be able to live here anymore. You know what I mean, or afford it. And you know, the good news is that the two gentlemen that are sitting here are taxpayers as well, as we all are. And I think that, you know, one of the, you know, sort of messages that the town manager, upon his arrival coming in, was that, you know, he works here, plays here, and also pays taxes here and wants to stay here. And so, you know, I do believe the due diligence is sitting with him and his finance team to not have us at the low end and paying $20 per thousand on a tax rate that I don't think a lot of people could afford to live here. And the good news is that we can actually see out and see that we've got an issue in 7 years, is when we're looking at the 2018 or no, 22.
22, yeah.
So we need to plan today in this budget to be sure that we don't run into that cliff as you speak of.
No, I'm a simple guy. But to solve a problem, I have to put all the eggs into one basket, basically, and there are many of them. There's the land. Now, I look at the zoning map. Half of the land or more is conservation land. Then the next item comes to my mind. If the tribe, the Wampanoag tribe, is claiming their basic land again, what is left for us to develop? We are depending on the growth, the 2.5, by a steady a build-out, so more construction. And when I read these articles in the paper that we are having this housing project, New Seabury is putting up these houses. It's a tax return, you know, income to the town. Well, they're going to be built out eventually.
Mhm.
And then if we look for land to build, we have so many conservation restrictions that business people who want to come here, they throw up their hands before they even consider to come to Mashpee because of the restrictions and we actually have a divided government here. That bothers me too in our own financial outlook for the town. We have the government of the Wampanoag, and then we have our public government. How the two will work together is still anybody's guess. So,
Well, let's approve the minutes.
yeah,
I do think that you bring up valid points. I think the handwriting is in the report that we were given. You know, the future is somewhat predictable as to where, if we continue on the same path, where we'll be. And I don't think that we all can sit here,
No.
everybody in this room included, you know, to do that. And it would not, I think it would be financially irresponsible on our part to just rubber stamp. So moving forward, I think we really will be scrutinizing, you know, not only will the town manager and the assistant town manager be scrutinizing the requests for budgets this year, but I think we also have a fiduciary responsibility to also scrutinize their recommendations. You know what I mean? And then take those assumptions and perhaps plug them into the document that the finance committee came up with to see where now, if we base this all the way out, where we land. So with that, I have a first and a second on the floor for the approval of the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Any liaison reports or things from other people? And I know we haven't picked liaisons because we're waiting for an appointee. Hearing none, we'll move on to old business, which is our liaison assignments, which again, if you want, we can lock these down so we can begin to crawl through the budgets and just or the requests, and let the cards fall as they may, or we can wait until our either January meeting, if we decide to have one, or in February, make those decisions. I offer it up to the committee.
Well, if you want my opinion, this is just my opinion. There's no need in waiting for one or two other people to come in. I mean, the town needs responses from people today,
Okay.
right? And this is important. This is huge. And you're talking about these budgets and all these dollars that's being spent and potentially raising interest rates and people's tax rates. That's to me, I'm like, I think we should just go forward what we have, and whenever the new person comes in, and we can assign them, someone can maybe take a load off and go from there,
Who do you
think?
expect to come in?
Well, we needed one more person to fill Terry's spot. We're down one person. So,
Any applicants?
the moderator, he appoints that person, is assuring me that there's somebody ready to go.
So Chris, looking at the schedule, if we were to move ahead, there's only one open spot, and we'd only have to reassign 2 departments, is that correct?
I believe so.
So it doesn't seem like very much of a dislocation. Why not move ahead?
Okay. So let's do that. So currently, I'm responsible, and I'm going to share with you, Waterways Planning and Selectmen. David, you're responsible for building CPC and the schools. Oscar, DPW, Board of Health, Sewer. Sylvester, Accounting, Assessing, Recreation. Jeffrey, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Council on Aging, Cemetery, IT. And Mike, Planning, Library, Conservation, Police, Fire, Human Services, CIP. And the only open things will be Town Clerk and HR. Do we agree?
Great.
So let's take a vote. I make a motion to appoint liaisons as I have just read. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous.
Did you want to reassign those 2?
I'm fairly certain we'll be fine with those.
All right.
Meaning that I think we're gonna get somebody, so I think we're good. And obviously, I think what would happen is we may move some off of Mike, who's a little heavy, into the new role, so maybe giving the new person planning,
Yeah.
conservation, and maybe human services or whatever, and moving that so Mike's doesn't have such a heavy load. And everybody can chip in, just as you know. Don't have to, but certainly I will be looking, quite honestly, at the 3 biggest anyways, and I don't have them, but certainly I'll be checking fire, police, and DPW as well as, backing up. So no need anybody can look at any of these and go through and get an idea as to what's going on. Those are the 3 heavy ones. And of course,
There's only one
Schools.
suggestion I have,
yes, sir.
that these departments, when they have their meetings of any sort, they should notify their liaison, because is it advertised public, or is it,
Meetings for what?
well, in-house meetings?
meetings.
Or DPW has meetings, the Board of Health, I don't know if they have meetings, the sewer department, well, it's,
I think the Board of Health will have meetings, committee meetings and so forth, if that's what you're looking for. And
Yeah.
they send out the agenda, I'm copied on the agenda, I believe it gets sent out. You get it in your town email. So if it's okay with the two of you, if the liaisons that are set here, if we were to send this out to you to let the committee and board members know who their liaisons are now, then perhaps if there was a meeting and so forth, if they could direct any meetings or whatever to the appropriate person, that'd be great.
Glad to do it.
Okay.
I just don't know what kind of meeting you're referring to.
I'm thinking, so if the Board of Health is having a hearing or something along those lines, perhaps maybe we could be included in it, or the liaison could be included in that.
Well, if they have
That
no meeting,
agenda.
there was no need for a liaison.
I mean, it'd have to be a public meeting, it wouldn't be. like
Public
a
meeting, yeah.
Private staff department meeting or anything like that, you know?
Those meetings are posted on a regular basis, and the Board of Health meets every other week, I believe,
Planning board, all that, right.
Are on a regular meeting. As far as DPW, they don't have any meetings.
No, police doesn't, fire, right.
So you'd have to,
Right.
you'd have to physically schedule that with that department head, I assume, then, or
If
whoever
you
their
wanted a
person.
separate meeting. Is that what you're getting at, Oscar? Meeting one-on-one with them, or? I'm trying to understand what you're trying to.
Well, if I don't know, I feel stupid. So, if I just attend a meeting or go to them and say, what's going on here, you know? I don't think this is right. I think if there is a decision made of acquiring new equipment, the CIP, I believe, so the,
You have a member on your
Yeah.
committee that's on the CIP.
We have a CIP member,
who is he?
Mike.
Mike is,
Richardson, and he attended all the meetings.
yeah.
Good.
Mike's on the CIP, so he can report back on that. But sewers, if the sewer committee is meeting, I think it's fair enough that you should be informed of when that meeting is taking place. You know, public meetings.
Yeah. What I can do, Chris, is I can make sure that your liaison list, once it's forwarded to me, is distributed to all departments. And if in fact,
Done. Check the box.
if you would like your liaison to sit down with the department head for the purposes of having an understanding or perspective of their budget request and/or their budget needs and their opinion, be
Right.
more than happy to arrange that.
Okay.
Perfect.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I would suggest if you
But
make
I
that,
need to know that there's an interest.
oh, yeah, well, I think,
Well,
here's the deal too, is before that conversation or that meeting takes place, you need to read the book. And then if there's any questions, then, of course, schedule the time through the town manager for a meeting.
Perfect.
so I could call you anytime to ask what's going on in the department.
You can call me anytime.
Okay, thank you.
That's
No,
why you pay me the
communications
big
is important. Communication is important. There's no
Okay.
sense having a committee and have no communication.
bucks. Any of you can call me anytime. If you just want to sit down with the department head, I'd like it to go through me. Come in.
Yep,
Okay.
Okay.
that's fair enough. Kathy, can you just send out a copy of that final liaison thing via email? Sorry, you just have it electronically. I think you probably already have it put together, so that's fine. Any old business that anyone would like to discuss? Okay, new business. So the only thing I put on here was FY18 budget review. I just wanted to be sure that everybody got their binder and that everybody knows how to read the binder and is comfortable with how it's set up, or, you know, basically raise your hand if you've gone through it and you have any questions. This will be the opportunity time. Have you had an opportunity to go through it?
I've looked at it.
Okay.
Yes.
No questions, you kind of get it?
Not right at the moment, no. That's what I plan to, make a call and sit down with some of those department heads and maybe get an idea, kind of more information about where they're kind of coming from and,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good. Okay. Because, certainly, the one good thing about this, in this stage, is that you get it literally by line item.
You know.
So you can peel back the onion, in the sense, when you look at the bottom line and see if there was an increase, but you can peel it back and say, oh, the reason is because there's a longevity payment that's contractual, there's this, there's that, and so forth. And you can get a really good
Precisely.
understanding as to, all right, it's really going down in expense, but it's going up in payroll because we're contractually bound by an agreement.
And they did a great job of laying this out, by the way. I have to tell you that your team, they did a great job. Amazing, really. No kidding. So, looks good.
Good, okay. Any other questions in regards to where we're sort of embarking on the budget process or anything?
Well, the only question that has come to my mind as I review these documents, and keep my eyes open when I drive through the community, do we have a grant writer?
Do we have a what?
Grant writer?
Grant writer, no.
Because when I make contact with other the places, they are doing nice work, like sidewalks and blending areas, and I find out they received a grant. So why do we not, perhaps we should consider getting a grant writer, and somebody is intelligent enough to know where the money is and how to get it.
I can tell you that individual department heads have sought grant money, including the police, the fire, DPW, excuse me, conservation.
Yeah.
Problem is, sometimes with grants, depending upon the strings attached, you might be on the hook in subsequent years that you don't want to get tied into. Now, that's for additional personnel. You're talking about a project, I presume.
The overall, not just the department, but the overall improvements of the town. I mean, I look at the center here, and it looks like a third world country. I mean, the sidewalk is broken, I mean, it just doesn't look right. It looked like this in the 50s, and it's still today the same.
Yeah, you
But-
know, Oscar, one of the things about grant writing is, one of the nice things about it is you can hire them on an as-needed basis. So rather than building additional infrastructure cost into the, human resources profile of the community, if you see someone and you need a little extra help with that, you just go out and pay them an hourly fee and go from there. A lot of organizations do it that way, rather than bringing on a full-time person with all the, associated non-paycheck issues like health insurance and retirement and all these sorts of things. So I'm thinking back to your comment earlier in the evening where you said you have to think outside the box, and one of the first things I thought of was like, what of these functions could be privatized? And grant writing would be a really good example of privatizing a function, yeah.
We also get an intern.
Yeah,
Sure.
get an intern, yeah.
I'm just raising a point.
No, it's
No,
good.
it's
A lot
a
of
good point.
communities are using full-time grant writers just for that purpose.
Absolutely, I know that, I know it, I did my research.
Well, and I think also, if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a lot of towns too that are sharing that role along the same lines as like weights and measures. Falmouth and Barnstable, I think, has a thing, and they actually do us, if I'm not mistaken. We contract that town to go do that stuff, so we don't have to pay somebody to do our weights and measures. I think that same opportunity is available for towns, and that might be something that, we could be looking into to see if in fact there's an opportunity there or not. So certainly something we can certainly, yeah. look into.
I think Oscar makes a great point. I used to live in Plymouth, and I would tell you that they had a business development person there, and that's what they did. They looked at grants, and they wrote grants. They also looked at infrastructure within the community, and they looked in, and they talked to companies that was potentially interested in coming in and starting their businesses there. And so, and of course, I brought this up to your assistant town manager before we started the meeting, because I wanted to find out if we even had a business development person in the town, or an economic development person, that actually does work with the Chamber of Commerce, and physically go out and figure out ways to bring companies here and businesses here, and help the town grow, and grow the tax base. And that way, everyone, you know, can still, again, have access to the great services that's being provided right now. So I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's a great idea, Oscar. I remember talking to the guy who used to be in Plymouth, his name was Dennis Hanks, you know? And he did the business development and economic development for the town of Plymouth, but he also was also the director for the Chamber of Commerce. He had a dual role, and it actually worked out really well for the town, I believe. And I think that that's something that we need to start looking at here, because like Oscar said, we gotta figure out other ways to bring in more revenue into this town, outside of just raising property taxes, without a doubt. So,
Good. Just other new business real quick. Could you guys just sign this? This is just transfer of funds for the audit.
okay.
And also on your, in front of you, Jason did a recap for us. It was the recapitalization, a recap, so you can take a look at how fiscal 17 is looking, and I believe he calculates a tax rate, but if he gets into the overlays and stuff like that, so you can take a peek at that.
Okay.
Where's Clifford Lab?
What's the question?
Where's Clifton and Lawson?
On the last page of that document is the statement. That's for the audit that we hire them to look at the books every year.
Wow. For professionals within the towns. What are they doing for $8,000?
We do it every single year.
I know. Are they new?
They are not new. They've been with us, I think, now for, the name changed of 2 years ago,
Because it's the first time I see that name.
and we recontracted with them.
Just asking questions.
Yeah, they did good. Yeah.
Very thorough.
Okay. Kathy, if you could pass that down to the town manager slash town, assistant town manager?
top of
Get paid.
On top of me.
That's done. Any other business that anyone else would like to bring up before we adjourn? Anything? You guys are good? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.